our thoughts shape our reality. Positive thoughts attract opportunities, while negative ones, I think, create barriers. You're going to get disrupted. There's going to be somebody that's going to come in and try to challenge your position in the market.
Challenge. The future of work is human. The future of leadership is human.
It's a daily reflection of, did I do my best today to, meet the goals and the things that I wanted to accomplish? And I have about 7 questions that I ask myself. And it
Yeah.
really does, at the end of the day, give me a chance to reflect on how I did,
You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are.
depending on the type of business that you have. You've got to be flexible and you've got to be adaptable.
Work is just a part of your life, and life is not just about work. What you plan to do in 6 months, you can get it done in 1 month if you have an accountability partner.
Go through those steps, write it down, have a plan, tell people about it, commit to it, have a partner to hold you to what you say you're going to do. That's going to give you a higher chance of success than anything else that you could do. If leaders have negative self-talk, then guess what?
Hi everyone, this is Shagun Agarwal, and welcome to today's podcast episode where we have a very distinguished person as our guest, Rhett Power. Rhett is a distinguished executive coach, a best-selling author, and a business executive and an entrepreneur with over 15 years of experience in leadership coaching and business growth. As the founder and CEO of Accountability Inc., Rhett is a regular contributor to Forbes, where he shares his insights on leadership development, entrepreneurship, and personal development. He has been featured on HuffPost, Business Insider, Inc. magazine, The Wall Street Journal, and CNN Money. So, without further wait, let's welcome Rex on today's podcast. So, Rhett, thank you so much for joining me on today's show. I'm really grateful for your time and energy and that you took time out to talk to the audience today and to share your insights.
Well, it's a real pleasure, and thank you for having me. I love this conversation, and I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you so much. So, Red, with every generation, human behavior is changing, human wants are changing, and then with the advent of AI, technologies are changing so fast. So, what are the skills necessary for success in today's changing economy?
Look, I think you have to be. I mean, as an entrepreneur, you've always had to be adaptable, but I think that plays a big role today. The more resilient and adaptable you are, I think the more the ability for you to understand and see and be able to cope with the massive speed at which this change is moving. I mean, AI
Yeah.
is drastically changing what business is going to look like, and I speak with a lot. I work with a lot of founders and a lot of entrepreneurs, and these changes are. It's incredible how fast they're moving. So I think resilience and adaptability are important. I think strong communication skills, both verbal and digital, are really, really, really key. I think having emotional intelligence, and the ability to lead with empathy. Look, I mean, you think you're nervous about this change. Think about the way our employees and our teams feel. I mean, they're wondering if they're going to have a job tomorrow, right? And so I
Yeah.
think you've got to lead with, that in mind and understand people's anxieties and people's fears,
Yeah.
and lead with empathy, and I think that's
100%.
really, really critical. And then a strategic
Yeah.
mindset, I think, is also important. And I think this applies to every industry. So I don't think
Mm.
it's just in tech. It's, if you run the corner bakery, you better be thinking about how to use data and analytics, and how do you apply that to social, and how do you drive business to your, how do so I think it applies to small and medium sized businesses as well as
Mhm.
to big business.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter if you're leading two people or if you're leading 20. In today's time, I believe with the generations changing, like in 2025, a
Yeah.
new generation has come up. So leaders need to be more empathetic. And I was reading an article which said that the future of work is human, the future of leadership is human.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. 100% right.
Yeah. And like rightly you said about evolution and adaptability, because companies like Kodak, who were the top players in their market and have vanished
Right.
like anything.
Yeah. I mean, look, I mean,
And
there's a whole graveyard. I saw this graphic a couple of years ago. It was this whole graveyard. It was a picture of a graveyard, and it had the
mm-hmm.
tombstones, and it had Kodak and Best Buy, and or not Best Buy, but
Right,
it
right.
had all these companies. And what I think the statistic
Mm-hmm.
is, you used to stay on the Fortune 500 75 years. Now it's
Mm-hmm.
like 11, right? So you're going to get disrupted. There's going to be somebody that's going to come in
Yeah,
and try to challenge your position in a market.
challenge.
So
Yeah.
you have to be, yeah.
Yeah, I run a research and strategy consulting company, and since that advent of ChatGPT, I have seen a drop in my business. So I am still trying to figure out what could be the next thing to keep up with the pace of the changing technologies,
Yeah, yeah, it affects all of us. I mean, in the coaching space as well. Uh,
coaching space as well.
yeah,
Correct, that's so true. So, Red, you just talked about emotional intelligence, understanding other person's emotions and then acting according to that. So, what are some practical steps that you suggest in your coaching program and your coaching top leaders across the world to improve their self awareness and emotional intelligence so they can understand others' point of view also when making a conversation?
yeah, that's a great question. I think as a leader, what I've found really helpful, and a lot of the people that I coach and I work with, we talk a lot about mindfulness and reflection, and to understand your emotional triggers and your patterns. One of the things that helps me, and my mentor, Marshall Goldsmith, really introduced me to this concept. And Harry Kramer does something very similar, which I think is really interesting. But Marshall does daily questions, and I have now adopted the practice for myself,
Mhm.
which is really a daily. And I do it. I do it in the evening. It's a daily reflection of, did I do my best today to be kind?
Mm.
Did I do my best today to meet the goals and the things that I wanted to accomplish? And I have about 7 questions that I ask myself, and it
Yeah.
really does at the end of the day give me a chance to reflect on how I did.
Mm.
Marshall scores himself. I don't go as far as that, but I do it
Mhm.
mostly in my head. But and he has actually an accountability partner that calls him, and and they go through the questions. But I do this myself, and it helps me, think about my day, reflect on my day, be mindful about my day. What did I do well?
Mhm.
What did I need to improve on? What didn't I,
Yeah.
um, and it gives me a chance to think about what I did. And I think that's I think it's an important mindfulness practice, and
Yeah.
understand, what happened today. Was it a good day?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I think understanding your emotional triggers. I have somebody that I was coaching a couple years ago, and he
Mhm.
called one day and said, I'm really my attitude and my I'm just angry, and I'm triggered lately. And I said, well, let's get to the bottom of it. And what we found is that his new assistant of a couple of months reminded him of
Mhm.
his mother. And
Yeah.
his mother triggered him. He has a tense relationship with his mother, and it's not the fault of the new assistant that he is triggered by her and the way she speaks or the way she does something, that it reminds him of his mother. But it's something he's now got to be more mindful of when he's around that person, and he's got to get control of those triggers and how it affects him emotionally. So
Mhm.
that was something that I think is a very important part of your question. I think seeking feedback is another thing from peers and mentors, and
Yeah.
the people that work for you and work with you, so you can identify your blind spots. I think that's a really important thing that you have to do. And then I think really practicing gratefulness and empathy, and looking at being able to listen to different perspectives, I think is also something
Yeah.
that's, it's very hard to get feedback. It's very hard to, I
Yeah.
was talking to somebody yesterday about being challenged. He's a senior leader, and he doesn't like when people challenge him. And we're
Mm.
going to have to, it's one of those things that he and I are going to have to work on in the coaching, because he
Mm.
needs honest feedback. If people are scared to give
Yeah.
him honest feedback, he's not going
Yeah.
to be very effective as a leader. So I think these are
Yeah.
all things that we have to, as leaders in this day and age, I think we have to really pay a lot of attention to.
Correct, correct. So, Rhett, you talked about emotional intelligence, understanding
Mhm.
others' emotions better, and that's how important it is. And, for me, reflections are very important. It's been very close to my heart for my routine. And I believe these are like some of the step backs that you take in life to eventually move forward. So, at the end of the day, just reflect upon what else you could have done, what you did right, what you didn't do right. So what you have to stop doing, what you have to start doing, what you continue doing. If you just reflect a few minutes, like you said, you just do it on your in your mind. And that's more than enough. You don't have to write it down on a piece of paper. You just have to recall the entire day. And those are like the step backs that you can take to eventually move forward the next day.
Yeah, yeah, 100% agree with that.
Yeah. And that's how
You don't have to make you
important.
don't have to make it over you don't have to make it over complicated, right? I think we think
Yeah.
this is complicated, and it really isn't.
Yeah.
Just a short practice of reflection
Yeah.
will just do wonders for how you show up.
How you show up the next day. Or how you become a better version than you were a previous day.
Yeah, that's right. Because when you're
So that
calm, right,
talking.
in the heat of the moment, when you're in a meeting or something, and you're in the heat of the moment,
Yeah. Yeah.
you're not going to necessarily reflect on that properly. But at the end of the day, you
Yeah.
can say, you know what, I should have said this. Maybe I need to
Yeah.
think about
Yeah.
how I did that.
And that also builds a level of awareness because a lot of times we keep doing things, but we don't realize we don't have much awareness around those activities. So this reflection also prepares your mind, also gets you in a habit of reflecting upon your day, also making sure that you're aware of what happened during the day. So you don't miss out on important observations.
Yeah, I love that word habit, right? It is developing a habit of it. And I think that's a great
Yeah.
example. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So that like I mentioned about this quote and I was reading about your quotes and some of them I really love. One of them really strike with me was what you think about, you bring about. And your mindset directly influences the energy you carry, project and receive. So can you explain the importance of these two lines to our viewers and listeners and make it a little bit simple so people can follow what it means?
I think it's pretty simple. I mean, like our thoughts shape our reality. I
Hmm.
think positive thoughts attract opportunities, while negative ones, I think, create barriers. And look, I think a growth mindset, a positive mindset,
Hmm.
helps us attract. Um, I think it helps us attract opportunities, like I said. But I think the positive mindset also helps us embrace challenges,
Yeah.
and be more capable of finding solutions. When you have that positive mindset,
Hmm.
and you don't go to the negative, you don't let your mind go to the negative things that can happen, and which is fear, by the way, right?
Hmm.
When you don't let fear be your guide, then
Hmm.
you looked at things with an open mind, solutions are a lot harder to, are a lot easier to find. um, I think it's also about energy is contagious. We all
Yes.
have these people in our lives, right, that are negative, and they,
Hmm.
we don't, we have to spend time with them often, but we don't, it doesn't really fill our cup, it doesn't really fill our soul.
Yeah.
So, but we also have those people in our lives that just light up a room and light us up, and like we love being around, and we never can get enough
Yeah.
of it. And I think, look, energy is contagious.
Yeah.
Leaders,
Absolutely.
you as a leader set the tone for your team, for your business, for,
Hmm.
if you're a manager, for the people around you that you manage. So think about your energy, and how
Yeah.
you're, uh, what you're giving off. Because if you're giving off negative energy, I'm writing a
Hmm.
book right now about this, and it's about, if leaders have negative self-talk,
Hmm.
then guess what? The research is finding that their team is
Hmm.
going to have negative self-talk. And
Okay.
that's a massive problem, right?
That's a massive
Uh,
problem. Yeah.
and so I think that's what that's really about, is that you just
Yeah.
have to be cognizant of how you're showing up, and the energy, and the,
Yeah.
and the the way that you're there, because it does
Hmm.
influence people, and
Does influence people.
it influences your success. I mean, the more
Hmm.
we go through this life and we have positive energy and we're attracting positive energy, the more successful we're going to be, the happier we're going to be. And
Yeah.
and I think that's just a, I don't
Yeah.
know, I think that's just a truth that that's out in the universe. Um,
Yes. Yes. Talking about the universe, there's one line which says, you don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. Um,
mm.
so you might be wanting to ride the most expensive car in this world, but if you're not feeling that, if your thoughts are not that, and if you don't
Yeah,
feel that you deserve that, then you're not going to attract that. How much ever dreams you have, it doesn't matter then.
that's 100% true. Yeah.
Just now you mentioned about your book, and my next question was on the book that you wrote, your best-selling book, The Entrepreneur's Book of Actions, which is a practical guide designed to help entrepreneurs develop the mindset and habits necessary for business success. And this is
Mhm.
something I wanted to add for the viewers, that if you've not checked out the book, do check it out, because it's full, it's power packed with a lot of insights and strategies that you can be using immediately in your business and in your life. So, can you tell Rhett a little bit about the book, and how can the readers um, use the strategies in the book to help navigate setbacks and failures in entrepreneurship and in life in general?
Yeah, thank you for bringing the book up. It's a book that's a couple years old now, and it was written for it was written. I wrote it sort of in a cathartic. It's a cathartic exercise for me, because I was coming out of being a brand new entrepreneur. I'd sold my business in 2014, and as I was putting this book together, it was really, I wanted to capture all the things that we did right, and then all the things that we could have done better, and that made a difference in what we, in our success in that business. And
Mm-hmm.
so it ended up being, and I've always been a really fascinated by habits. You mentioned that earlier, and that's why
Yeah.
um, habits to me are really critical to success. And
Mm.
so it's a different kind of book, because it's a book you carry with you all year. It's not something you just sit down and read through. It's a book that has daily exercises and weekly exercises, and is meant to help develop good habits in you over the course of a year that are going to help you be successful as an entrepreneur or as a founder. And it's little stuff, it's just little things that make the biggest difference. One of the
Yes.
exercises is learning to say no. I mean, I knew as an
Mm.
entrepreneur, learning to say no to things, and I
In life in
remember,
general.
yeah, I mean, I remember having a community leader come in. I think it was the deputy mayor or something, came into the office one day and said, "Hey, we need a couple $1,000s from you to support the local,
Mm-hmm.
sports teams. We're trying to fund. You're a big business here. We need you to fund the local baseball. The local stuff." And I had to say no, because we were actually struggling,
Yeah.
and we were down to maybe $10,000 in our bank account, and there was he was
Mm-hmm.
giving me a lot of pressure. And I also knew that we weren't really a community business. We were actually a national business and a
Yeah.
global business, but we were struggling. And
Yeah.
I wasn't going to get any benefit, except maybe a smile from supporting a local, business, or
Correct.
a
Correct.
local, like, sports team. So, our youth league. So, it's tough sometimes to say no, but I think that's one of the things, that's one of the lessons. But I also talk in the book about networking, and leading, and authenticity, and all of the things in the book, that all the little habits, just not the big, there's not a lot of big stuff in here, but it's a lot of little stuff that adds up,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
that we
Correct.
have to learn, right? And I think
True. True.
these are habits that helped us be successful. And I think if you do the exercises and you work on them, you will get better, and it will help you um, get more comfortable in your skin because the first couple of years of being an entrepreneur, I left the government. I was with USAID, had a great career going, and on a whim decided, hey, I wanted to try this entrepreneurship thing. And
Mhm. Mhm.
you know, it's the first couple of years. It takes you a little bit of time to get comfortable in your own skin
Yeah.
when you're doing this. And so this is a book really for that. And I think it, helps you develop that resilience and those habits that are going to really serve you well. So
Yeah, very true. Agree with you, Red. Like 90% of our life is run by habits. We realize it, we don't realize that it's a different story, but we are run literally by our habits. And if we can make certain good habits in our life, then life just becomes easier because we don't have to practically spend a lot of energy in doing that task because it's a part of our habit system.
yeah, right. That's true. And so that's why I wrote the book, because I realized that if I did these habits well, then I made that sort of connection that
Yeah.
if I did these things well, then I was going to have an easier time mentally, and just from a practical standpoint, like things would just be easier
Mm-hmm.
if I learn these skills, then I'm going to have a better time. So
100%. Yes.
yeah.
So, Red, with the changing, like I talked about the changing generations, and I mean the
Hmm.
changing human behavior as with the generations that are coming up, and wants and needs are changing. Um, I was reading an article which said that leaders are finding it very difficult these days to retain employees,
Hmm.
and to find them engaged at work. Um,
Yeah.
so, what could be a solution for that? How can leaders address this and reduce employee disengagement and turnover?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think it's one that we're all really struggling with.
Yeah.
And I think there's a couple things. I mean, and we've hit on some of it, right?
Mm.
Being more empathetic,
Yeah.
and being more communicative, both
Mm.
digitally and electronically, or but and in person. I think there are a couple other things that people, really tangible things that people can do. I focus my practice and my business focuses on building accountable cultures. And
Mhm.
what I mean by that is a culture where everyone knows what they're supposed to do. They have clear cut deliverables. They have clear cut things that they're supposed to deliver,
Mhm.
and they're accountable for. And
Mhm.
when people know what they're supposed to do, and they have
Mhm.
clarity around what they're supposed to bring to the table,
Mhm.
um, then it gives them the ability to go work on that and to do that and to accomplish that. When you have that across the teams, and people know
Mhm.
what their role in, and they understand what the company's mission is, they understand the company's values, and they understand what their role in that team
Mhm.
is, and what the team's role or their role in hitting the overall objective, and they can connect those things, and then when they're given the power to go out and try to do that and accomplish their task, um, then they're going to be happier. And the other part of that is there's transparency. Um, we have an accountability management system which has everyone. It's just a transparent document across the organization. Everybody can
Mm.
see what and who is supposed to deliver what team is supposed to deliver what, and they can see their progress towards those objectives. And what we find is that those are organizations when everybody knows what everybody's supposed to be doing,
Mhm.
and it's transparent, and there's monitoring of progress, and we do it on a
Mhm.
weekly basis. Then that's a highly engaged organization. It's a high functioning organization. And the other part of that, it's a fairer organization, because in that kind of organization, there are no favorites, right? The favorite of the sales manager isn't going to get the good accounts because they're actually not performing. If they're not performing,
Mhm.
they're not going to get uh, the rewards. So it's a fairer organization that we find, and people are promoted on performance, because performance is monitored on a weekly basis, and it's right there for everybody to
Mhm.
see. And so
Yeah.
I'm a big proponent of building uh, transparent, accountable
Mhm.
organizations. And I think that those kind of organizations see a high level of engagement.
Mm.
They see a high level of participation and people being communicative. There tends to be, it's what I call a got your back culture, not a watch your back culture,
Mhm.
right? And so if you can accomplish that, if you can build that kind of culture in your business, then you're going to have a highly engaged workforce. And I think, and my view is that that's a really, it takes a, as Marshall Goldsmith says, it's simple but it's hard. That's true, right? That all sounds good, but it takes a lot of intentional effort to build a culture like that. And if you
Yeah.
don't take that sort of effort, and if you don't make that effort, then you're not going to have that kind of culture, and then you're going to have low engagement. If you're not building and intentionally trying to engage
Mhm.
people and build a culture like that, then you're gonna it's gonna be it's gonna be hard.
Yeah, yeah, agree on that, Red. And transparency is something that everyone wants in an organization, even with your peers, your seniors, your juniors. You want to know where everyone is as compared to you. I mean, we all are humans, so we have a tendency to compare, and
Yeah. Yep.
and not
Yeah, we
just
do.
not just compare the qualitative projects, but also in terms of numbers, who is delivering what, how many hours, what's the productivity of each employee, and at the end
Yeah.
of the day, who is bringing what to the table. And once you have a clear idea of that, you know that the organization is honest to you. And when you know that, you stay with the company. And that's what leaders are struggling with today, that people are not staying for a long time. Maximum, it's a couple of months or a year, I would say. That's what the
Mhm.
statistics are saying these days. And
Yeah.
I would also like to bring upon the topic of work from home. I mean, people are not happy going back to office 5 days a week.
Yeah.
So, do you feel that's also one of the factors that's causing disengagement? People are looking for more hybrid or flexible work options.
Yeah, I think they are. I think people have gotten accustomed to working from home. I went to lunch the other day with a friend, and he's been remote now for about 6 years. And he says, I want to go back to the office now.
Mhm.
I miss the interaction that we had at the office. But he said my office
Yeah.
isn't going back, so I'm
Yeah.
stuck. Um, I think some of it is personality driven. I think some people like to work from the office. I'm actually one of
Yeah.
them. I like going in and having those water cooler conversations and having those lunches and having those coffees. But I'm a people person. So I think
Yeah.
it's an interesting question. I mean, we've been remote for a long time. It just didn't make sense in our business and with our
Yeah.
dispersed team to have an office. And we've been remote since our inception. But I think it's a tough question that leaders are struggling with.
Hmm.
I think there's got to be a happy medium, because there
Hmm.
is value in being at the office. Um,
Yeah.
but I think today you're going to struggle with talent if you don't have a plan, and if you don't have a program and something that people can buy into. You are going to struggle with retaining talent. You're going to struggle with being able to recruit talent. I mean,
Hmm.
if you, as a business today, let's say if you're a tech business today, if you're not recruiting from India and China and globally, and Eastern and Western Europe, if you don't have if you're not recruiting from all over the world, you're probably gonna be you probably have a shortage of people, right? So
Right.
I think we've got to, one of the things about growing and succeeding today in business is that flexibility and that adaptability we talked about earlier. So I
Yeah.
think that's all really part of it. And as a leader, you can't have a black and white view of all this, or I think you have to think about your talent retention, because if you
Hmm.
don't have the people to do the business, then it doesn't matter. So I think it's a great question. I don't know the real answer, the real solution to it, but I do know that depending on the type of business that you have, you've got to
Hmm.
be flexible and you've got to be adaptable, and part of that is going to be the work and the work remotely. Now,
Work remote.
I do know that if you have remote teams, you've got to make a tremendous effort to
Yeah.
communicate. You got to make a tremendous effort about your culture. You got to make a tremendous
Hmm.
effort about bringing people together in a meaningful way. I mean, I
Yes.
know some companies that are doing quarterly retreats somewhere, right? Where they're bringing people together so that they can spend time together. I think
Hmm.
that's a really interesting thing.
Great idea. Yeah.
So there's, if you do have a remote team, it's a tremendous effort to make them feel engaged, make them feel connected, make them feel wanted, and make them feel like their work matters. That's all stuff that you have to pay attention to.
Definitely. So talking about evolution and innovation and keeping pace with the changing
Mhm.
practices, what are some of the outdated leadership practices that need to be left behind in today's world?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, we mentioned it a little bit earlier about the top down. When I was growing up, the whole top down sort of leadership style, I think
Yeah.
is certainly outdated. I think uh, not being connected to purpose and or connected to a greater goal. I look at my kids today. They want to work for a company that is doing good in the world. They want to work for a company that has a good purpose, that is doing something good for society. So
Mm-hmm.
I think people today want to know that their work matters, and the company or the organization they're working for um, is doing good in the world in some way. So I think that's, if you're not thinking about what your purpose is and what the business is, I think it's going to be harder to retain talent. Um, but I think also leading without that empathy and that what we talked about earlier, right? Without
Yeah.
empathy and some understanding of what people are going through today. I think if you're not emotionally connected as or emotionally intelligent as a leader, and you're not paying attention to that, then I think um, then you're going to suffer. Those are all things that I don't think people paid much attention to, at least when I was coming up. We were told what to do, when to do it, and how to do it, and there
Yeah.
was no there was no there was no debate. Again, people are looking for a different kind of management leadership style today, and I think that's important to them. And so the other thing is, I think there's a recognition that I got promoted several times in my career because I was the last person standing. I was the person with the most seniority, right? And when the manager left, I was next up. And not necessarily did I want that management job, or did I want that leadership role. So I also think companies are paying more attention to how they promote and to the middle management, to that bench, like working to
Mm.
build a bench. I know that we're working with several companies now to build that middle management, that middle tier,
Yeah.
because those are people, they've got to find the next leaders, and the next leaders in the organization, and because they like to promote from within. And so I think companies are realizing that you just can't promote people now because they're the next person up. They've survived the longest. Let's build that management uh, tree so that people are ready when there's an opportunity within the organization. And I think,
Yeah.
I think that's a realization that you've got to build people up and build people's skill sets up so that they're prepared.
Yeah. Sounds good. So, Red, I totally agree with you. I feel that gone are the days when leaders thought that they could be boss, they could boss around people and just give instructions with no autonomy, flexibility, creativity, and expect them to be working round the clock and
Yeah.
getting the work done at whatever cost and in whatever situation they are. So I think
Yeah.
gone are those days, and the newer generations, as we are seeing, are not going to tolerate that kind of business environment. And today, everyone is looking for independence, for autonomy, for flexibility, and respect, and empathy, understanding that you might also be going through something in life, and you also have a life outside work. So, so I
Yeah.
think with every generation, people are understanding that, work is just a part of your life, and life is not just about work.
Yeah. I had my son has had a summer job, and he came home, and he said, "Man, my boss got mad at me today." And I said, "Well, what happened?" And he said, "Well, um, I was leaving at 5 o'clock, and I mean, the project wasn't finished, but
Yeah,
that there was never they never set an expectation that I was supposed to stay until it wasn't due today. It's due next week, but."
yeah,
And the guy, he said that my boss was giving me a hard time for leaving at 5 o'clock. And it's like, okay, I can appreciate the boss's perspective because you wanted to make some more progress than you made, but it's not due yet. But I think,
yeah,
but I also applaud you for leaving at 5 because your work days until 5. And
yeah,
uh, but I think, yeah, I think you're right. Right? This they have boundaries that maybe we didn't have, and
yeah. That is true.
I would have. I mean, if I was his age, I would have just stayed. If the boss like gave me a hard time about packing up to leave, I would guess I would have just stayed to finish. And you know, but they have boundaries that I think are probably healthy.
Yeah. I remember once I left work at 5 a.m. in the morning.
Oh, oh, that's painful.
Yes,
It's
that's
painful.
really, really happened. I was in investment banking, so it's a tough industry altogether. But
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
5 a.m. is not easy.
yeah,
Sitting all
no, but
night. I'm
I
glad that
can.
the newer generation will never experience something like this, and I hope never anyone has to experience something like this.
Well, yeah, I mean, investment banking is so that's yeah, like you said, it's a tough business with tough expectations, and
Yes,
I'm glad I went through that in some ways.
ex
That kind of, but
made you who you
um,
are today.
it does, and I do worry a little bit about this generation, but and the commitment to doing something well and doing it, all the way through. But I digress. I digress.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I feel that my work timings and expectations, I learned so much over there.
Hmm.
Resilience, and overcoming setbacks and understanding what my personal boundary were and exerting that limit, understanding till where I could go physically,
Hmm.
mentally. And it just strengthens you mentally so much that you are ready for any other setback in life and any other challenges that come your way.
Yeah, that's right. And it does shape your character, and it shapes who you are, and it
Yeah,
there's a certain like you said, you get to understand what your limits are and what your capabilities are, and
yeah.
it's a it's the best school in the world for that, and it shows you how tough you are, right?
Right, right. And it also makes you appreciative when you're having good times. Like I'm an
Mm,
entrepreneur. I currently literally own my time. I can do whatever I want to do with my 24 hours without anyone questioning me at all. And I
that's
love
right.
it because I have been at the other end. So I really appreciate this phase of my life now, this work-life balance that I'm having, this independence.
Right.
So who could appreciate this more than a person who has stayed till 5 a.m. at their workplace?
That's right. That's right. And probably gone in at 5 a.m. too, you know, a few times.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So, Red, in the beginning of our conversation, you talked about negative self-talk.
Mhm.
How can anyone overcome negative self-doubt, self-talk? Because it comes very naturally. Anything goes wrong and you start blaming yourself for it, and that tampers your overall confidence in your professional journey, both personal and professional journey. So what? How can you build awareness around when you're having negative self-talk, and then take steps to reduce that or
Yeah.
remove that altogether?
Yeah, it's an interesting. I saw a new thing I hadn't seen before, but I saw that something like not we have 954 negative messages that we send to ourselves every day. And I thought, well, that sounds about right. So it is something that a lot of people, it affects some people more than others, obviously, but uh, for some people, it's pretty debilitating. And one of the methods that we've come up with is and we talk about in the new book is about catching that behavior. So is the first step in
Mhm.
really trying to control is not the right word, but uh, get some authority over the way you're thinking and the way you're talking to yourself is recognize when you're doing it, and then
Mhm.
when you recognize it, that one of the first things I want people to do is take a journal out. And this is one of those things where I do want you to write things down, because it is
Yeah.
your negative self-talk. It absolutely impacts your success and impacts your ability to do things in life. It impacts your self-confidence. It impacts your belief in yourself. It impacts the way you talk to other people, the way you show up, the way people view you, the way people see you. So, and that ultimately impacts what you can do in life. It impacts your success. And so, um, first being able to recognize it when you're doing it, stop that behavior, stop that
Mhm.
conversation, write it down, start journaling when you have those thoughts and writing down what those thoughts are. And then the next part of that is a reframing exercise. So when you finally are recognizing you're doing it and you're stopping it and you're writing it down, the next thing is to, okay, when I have that thought and I'm looking at I'm charting my thoughts, and I think
Yeah.
about my weight, 50 times a day, right?
Yeah.
And or I didn't go work out today, so I think about that 30 to 50 times a day, and it really
Yeah.
bugs me that I'm not doing something about it.
Yeah.
When you recognize the patterns, then you can start reframing the question or the what you're saying. So if you have a negative thought on your weight or going to work out or what you're eating, um, then you can reframe those questions and give those questions some thought. Well, why am I eating this today? Why am I eating this brownie or this cookie or this ice cream or this dessert? Um, if I stop that behavior, then maybe I can fix that negative self talk. So then you start working on the behaviors and the habits and the things that you're talking negatively about with yourself. And you can start working on those to improve
Mhm.
those, right? And it's it takes a lot of resolve. It takes a lot of practice, and it takes a lot of intentionality to do this. But then you can
Yeah.
start reframing those questions. And then as you build those habits of reframing those questions, then you can do it on the spot, right? Then you
Yeah.
can say,
Yeah.
then you recognize you're doing this self-talk thing. You can
Hmm.
recognize it, then you can reframe it.
Yeah.
And what that can lead to is sort of a recalibration of, the conversations you have. You're not going to stop it completely. But what I want you to do is I want you to recognize you're doing it, and I want you to recognize that it's harming you and that it's holding you back. And then gradually start,
Hmm.
fixing and catching some of that behavior, changing it, reframing it. And then that's going to help you overall be able to move through this life happier and healthier and I think more successfully. But for a lot of people, you've got to change that behavior. You've got to change the habit, because it does become a habit, as we've talked about today. And so I think that's it takes a lot of work. This is one of those things that's really hard. It takes a lot of work. But if your self talk is negatively affecting you, then this is hopefully you pick up the book. It's coming out in October. But just by what I've said today, if you can just take that simple thing of when you get that negative thought, write it down. That's the first step. The second step is
Yeah.
once you see the patterns, once you see, chart that for a week. Write it down for a week if you can. And you're not going to catch all 900 thoughts that you have every day. But if you're, I want you to catch the big ones, the ones that really hold you back, the ones that really affect you.
Yeah.
Chart that for a week and then look at the patterns and then start trying to reframe those questions to a more healthy conversation, um, and do something about those habits that really come up a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Just my last question now, Red. What
Mhm.
are the specific tools and frameworks you recommend for setting and achieving meaningful goals? And this is for everyone, not just for leaders. For any individual, how do you recommend that they achieve their goals and how do they set their goals?
That's a great question. Obviously, um, a lot of people think about this kind of thing over the new year, and I'm a big proponent of this is something you should be doing all year, not just around December and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
January. But I think there are a couple things that I recommend, and as an accountability coach and I run Accountability Inc.
Hmm.
I'm a big prom- proponent of having an accountability partner. Um, I look, I can't accomplish what I've accomplished in life without
Hmm.
uh, accountability. Like I have to hire a personal trainer to go work out. Why? Because I'm not disciplined enough, committed enough to do it by myself.
Yes.
If I pay someone to do it, then I've got
Mm-hmm.
skin in the game, and then I'm going to show up because I'm cheap. So I don't want to waste money. I'm going to pay somebody in advance to be my personal trainer, so that I show up every day. Um, so yeah, having an accountability partner, this can be a friend that's really honest and forthright with you.
Yeah.
It can be a colleague. It can be some people go to the extent of paying to be in accountability groups, which we run. Um, but I am a proponent of having an accountability plan. So, these are the things I want to work on in my life, in my work, in my leadership, or whatever it is. Writing them down, um, committing to them, telling other people that you're going to do this, and then having an accountability partner that helps push you to do
Yeah.
that activity every day that you say you want to accomplish. And here's the
Yeah.
statistic. Here are the statistics. If you have an accountability partner
Mm-hmm.
that understands your goals and what you plan to do, you're like 90 something percent more likely to get it accomplished. If you just say it, you're like a lot of people do these New Year's resolutions. They say, "Oh, I want to lose 30 pounds." There's nothing
Mm-hmm.
behind it. There's no plan behind it. There's no understanding what that's going to take behind it. That's why by January the 11th or whatever the date is, people have already
Yeah.
given up on their New Year's resolutions. Look, if you write it down, you tell somebody about it, you commit to it, and then you have a partner that holds you accountable to the goal. You're not like I think it's 95. It's a very high percentage more likely that you're going to accomplish it. So that's my
Yeah.
advice: is go through those steps, write it down, have a plan, tell people about it, commit to
Yeah.
it. Have a partner to hold you to what you say you're going to do. That's going to give you a higher chance of success than anything else that
Yeah.
you could do. Yeah.
Yeah, 100% right. Talking about my own personal experience, I have always felt, even though I'm very disciplined in my schedule, I still felt that I needed an accountability person, accountability
Mhm.
partner, because I felt like if I'm accountable to someone, then I have a very, very higher chances of being more disciplined, getting tasks
Mhm.
done at a faster rate in less time, and I have a better idea of what I accomplished and what I didn't, where I failed and where I succeeded. And at that time, I never thought that I could be that I should be hiring someone and pay someone as an accountability coach. So I just asked a friend, and I realized that things were turning around, and I was always looking forward to that call, that weekly call with the accountability partner, because I knew that I'm accountable. So by the end of the when the call used to start, I made sure that most of the things are done. So
That's
I
right.
don't look bad in front of that person, and that I look good in front of myself too. And
Yep.
everyone wants to wants the other person to feel good about you. So I realized that if I'm completing my goals and if my accountability partner is happy with me, then I'm also happy because I'm making someone happy by doing something.
That's right.
And that's such a natural part of human psychology, but over time what happened is that friend lost interest because obviously it was not paid, and maybe she was not serious as much as I was, and she
Hmm.
didn't realize the value of it, whatever the reason was. But still I feel that I need someone as my accountability partner, and I can get so much more done. So I would recommend all the viewers, listeners, to have an accountability partner, and you don't need any money for it. Any student can also do it. Just have a person who has similar ambitions and goals and who understands what you want to do in life and wants to walk that path with you, see your growth journey with you, and have someone, have one half an hour weekly call is also more than enough, and you will see that your life is moving much ahead. What you plan to do in 6 months, you can get it done in 1 month if you have an accountability partner.
Yeah, and a plan. I mean, I have a visual plan that I put together, right?
Yeah.
That is very methodical, and it's color coded so that you know what you've done, what you haven't done, and where your roadblocks are. And
Hmm.
um, I think I think you're right. It's is absolutely important to get somebody in your life that you can have that discussion with every
Yeah.
week. I think that's really smart. I think it gives you an opportunity to be way more successful and way more focused than you would be on your own. I mean, look, we cannot. Here's what I'll leave you with, and I think you probably agree. We can't do this alone, right?
Yeah.
We just can't. We can't. Success doesn't happen by itself. You need a community to become successful to accomplish what you want to accomplish, and that partner is a big piece of that. And I think it's something to really think about. Yeah.
Yeah, I would really, really vouch for an accountability partner. Everyone, irrespective of your position, your age, you must have an accountability partner. And if someone doesn't work out for you, then have another. Just keep changing until you find that perfect accountability partner for you, who makes sure that you are growing and you're 100% using your potential and making sure that you are achieving what you are capable of achieving. Because at the end of your life, you don't want to you don't want to die with regrets that you were capable of doing so much more, but you weren't able to do that. And you can't do this alone, as Rhett is saying correctly. You cannot do this alone. You need support of other people, people who believe in your dreams as much as you do, and people who are ready to push you to just achieve much more than what you're currently doing. Yeah.
100% agree.
Thank you so much, Rex. I think we had a wonderful conversation, lots to share, and a lot of insights that you shared for our viewers and our listeners. And anyone who's watching this episode will have so many takeaways for both their professional and personal life. And bottom of my heart, I really want to thank you for your time and energy. And I know how valuable your time is.
Well,
So,
thank you. It's been a pleasure, and love the conversation, and happy to support you in any way I can. Thank you.
thank you. Thank you so much, Red. That means a lot.